Hey everybody, and welcome to a true landmark moment here on my channel. I am just so excited to formally welcome you to the Gnome Docs series finale. It is so amazing to know that a little series that I dedicate one point in a year to, tackling a topic of popular culture that I truly appreciate. It is just so amazing to look at the final product and, of course, get all of the great comments and feedback that I receive from you, the watchers. And for the final one, I couldn't have picked a more appropriate topic. It is the one that I did 9 years ago that kicked up my subscriber base, really got my name out into the YouTube community, and also got so many views and so many comments just asking to give you guys more. So we are going to be diving back into the world of DC animation, and I just have to say that looking back on what I have created here, I couldn't be more satisfied with the final product, and I am just really hoping that you will agree. So we're going to start off with part 5, because we are picking up from the documentary that we did almost 9 years ago. Crazy. And we're going to be taking a look at the point where we actually left off. We're going to start off in the year 2013, right after Bruce Timm and company decided to create a 2-part film with The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1. So we're going to start with the follow-up second installment, and then we're going to go into the film that began an even bigger project for this animation studio. So sit back, get yourselves a beverage or a snack, and I hope that you enjoy. I'll see you in the next one. The world did not stop in December of 2012, which made the DC fandom happy, knowing they would not be left with a cliffhanger. As 2013 began, fans of the ever-growing DC animated worlds were waiting on bated breath for all their favorites to return. The end of January would see the completion of the DC Animated Film Library's 2-part film project, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, Part 2. Like the film before it, it would be a true page-to-screen adaptation of the iconic Frank Miller graphic novel. The film encompassed the 3rd and 4th issues of a 4-part graphic novel series and would see new additions to the cast to join Peter Weller and Ariel Winter. This would include Boston Legal's Mark Valley as Superman and Lost's Michael Emerson as the Joker, who would provide one of the darkest depictions of the Joker yet. Some would even compare this Joker to the likes of Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight, with Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy concluding the year before with The Dark Knight Rises. The completed duology was given critical acclaim across the board. Some would even call it one of the greatest Batman films ever made. There were even some that called this animated film a better version of Frank Miller's vision in his original book. With this project now officially in the history books, there was nothing that would stop Bruce Timm and his team from pushing forward with more acclaimed projects. The world was their oyster, as the comic book film was now being touted as more than just a B film. Thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Dark Knight trilogy breaking new ground in filmmaking, it would take a cataclysmic event for things to go in the opposite direction. This was where the infamous term "spoke too soon" hit the fans like a freight train. In the very same month, Cartoon Network announced their 2013-2014 TV program lineup. Cartoon Network would announce that two of their most popular programs, Young Justice and Green Lantern the Animated Series, would be ending their respective runs. This was a true death blow to the fans, as these shows had only begun to show their true potentials towards greatness. Like salt in the open wound, these two shows would be given a harsh farewell by the studio executives. Warner Brothers officially stated that they were not open to a third-party crowdfunding campaign intended to result in a third season for Young Justice. Both Young Justice and Green Lantern would not only see both of their series end on cliffhanger endings, but they would immediately see their time slots taken over by two new DC animated shows. First would be Beware the Batman. This would be a landmark series, being the very first Batman animated show to be done in full CGI animation, after the very first one with Green Lantern. This series was set during Bruce Wayne's early years as Batman, and he would be shaped into the hero that he is known as today in a very different way from the traditional Batman lore. He would hone his skills with the assistance of his butler Alfred Pennyworth and Alfred's goddaughter Tatsu Yamashiro, also known in the DC Comics world as Katana. There would be a great deal of additional unfamiliar faces to the show, such as villains like Professor Pig. There would be no effort to bring anything else familiar like the rest of the Rogues Gallery or even Robin. Strangely enough, Beware the Batman would garner numerous award nominations, including 4 Daytime Emmy Award nods, but the show would eventually see its rapid cancellation halfway through the premiere season. The entire first season would eventually air on Cartoon Network's Toonami block in 2014. The second show to join DC Nation was Teen Titans Go. The series was announced following the popularity of the DC Nation's new Teen Titans shorts featured during the DC Nation commercial breaks. Teen Titans Go was a comic spin-off with little or no continuity to the previous series. The original principal voice cast will return to reprise their respective roles. The series would explore what the Titans would do when they are just hanging around in the tower. Teen Titans Go is a true mystery to some, as it still remains on the air today. The show has received generally mixed reviews by critics. Some would call it an enjoyable laugh fest, while others would call it a travesty among DC animation faithful. If there was anything the fans of DC animation would be able to fall back on, it would be the growing library of DC animated films. With Bruce Timm in charge, after a tremendous success with Batman The Dark Knight Returns, the fans were eager to see the rest of the DC animation releases through 2013. Bruce Timm would drop the ball, saying that he would be stepping down as the supervising producer, leaving the franchise in the care of James Tucker. How could things get any worse? The iconic name that has been associated with DC animation since the early 1990s, the name that gave birth to the DC animated universe itself, would no longer be the one helming any of the future DC films. What would the new films be like, and would they even be done correctly? There would be a sign of relief hearing that Bruce Timm would not be gone entirely. He still does work for Warner Brothers Animation, but after many years of success, he felt it was time for a much-needed break. He would team up with the Man of Steel director Zack Snyder to treat the fans to an animated short celebrating the 75th anniversary of Superman. He would also return in 2014 to help create the short Batman Strange Days to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Batman. James Tucker would come right out the gate as producer and director of the second DC animated film of 2013, with a new Superman film called Superman Unbound. It would be another film based on a comic book storyline, this time called Superman Brainiac. This would be the second direct-to-video Superman vs. Brainiac film. Like the rest of the films in the library, it would be given a PG-13 rating, would include the cast of Matt Bomer as Superman, Molly Quinn as Supergirl, and the Lord of the Rings star John Noble as Brainiac. The film would receive positive reviews. Critics would praise the film's impressive animation and action sequences, and stating that it would provide a good story that didn't need to be split into two films. Others referred to Superman Unbound as a story that shows life lessons in a format that comes in an animated thriller. For now, it looked like things would be safe for DC Animation as the year would continue on. DC Animation would feature more iconic heroes in even more innovative and interesting ways. Another iconic name in popular culture that was growing in big ways was the ever-popular toy line of Lego. In the 2000s, Lego had made the ultimate leap into larger worlds, being able to make popular building sets based on famous properties in popular culture. This would include Star Wars, Harry Potter, and of course Marvel and DC Comics. Lego Batman was first introduced to the toy line in 2006. The sets would feature vehicles, characters, and even scenes from comics and films. The toy line encompassed a wide range of Batman's lore, even featuring Tim Burton and Frank Miller's Batman. In 2008, the first Lego Batman video game was released, only to add to the success of Batman in this medium. In 2012, Warner Bros. Animation would welcome the second Lego Batman video game with a direct-to-video film, Lego Batman the Movie, DC Superheroes Unite. The film and video game would also be released with 4 new Lego building sets. The film would include a stellar voice cast, including Clancy Brown, returning to reprise his voice as Lex Luthor, as well as some of the other living legends in the voice acting world, like Cam Clarke as Green Lantern and Martian Manhunter, and Rob Paulsen as the Riddler. The film would be a real treat for young and old fans alike, but the film would still get its share of criticism, stating that it is nothing but a promotional ad to sell more toys. Also, it would be known that this film would not be included in the more mature DC animated film library, which was now holding the official title of the DC Universe Original Films. A few years prior to the changes in DC Animation, DC would see a major shift in their humble beginnings. DC Comics were seeing a major decline in sales, as many of the titles, including some of their most popular, were not connecting with the fans as they used to. Outside of Batman and Green Lantern, DC was losing ground on Marvel in every which way. The executives felt it would be time for a change that would truly shake up the world of comic books. In 2011, under the leadership of Geoff Johns and Jim Lee, the world would see the rebirth of the DC Universe, as the main titles of their most popular characters would start from issue number 1 with the New 52. The New 52 would begin with a story created by Johns called Flashpoint. Flashpoint, coming off the heels of one of the most epic stories in DC Comics, Blackest Night, would see the Flash run back in time to save his mother from being killed, thus causing a dangerous butterfly effect that would show a dark and bleak DC world. Of course, it would be discovered that this whole course of actions taken by the Flash would be orchestrated by his arch-enemy, the Reverse Flash. The relaunch included changes to the publishing format, as it would help DC promote their distribution of digital comics. The main goal of the New 52 relaunch was for DC to be able to get new readers into comic books and have them have a launching point rather than going all the way back to the 1930s to see the beginnings of some of the most iconic DC heroes. In addition, characters from Jim Lee's Wildstorm universe were absorbed as that company would be discontinued. The birth of the New 52 would spill into the DC Universe animated library with the next film, Justice League, The Flashpoint Paradox. The new film would see familiar faces return to the recording booth, Kevin Conroy voicing Batman, Nathan Fillion voicing Green Lantern, and Dana Delaney voicing Lois Lane for the first time since the airing of Justice League. The cast would round itself out with Justin Chambers as the Flash, newcomer to the acting scene Michael B. Jordan as Cyborg, Vanessa Marshall as Wonder Woman, Carrie Elwes as Aquaman, and former 80s teen idol C. Thomas Howell voicing the Reverse Flash.
Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox received very positive reviews across the board. Critics and audiences said that the film stayed true to the source material, but probably the most predominant reaction was the fact that this film did not hold back on the story's intensity and violence. Many were shocked to see the amount of blood and gore featured in the film, as well as the very mature subject nature of the story, yet the film still managed to hold on to a PG-13 rating. One of the more well-known review websites, IGN, said the film outdid its source material. It was called sleek and stylish and hard-hitting, and praised C. Thomas Howell for his voice acting. It was also referred to as one of the most hardcore DC animated films to date. The only negative that some took away from this film was the high level of violence and the barrage of cameos that could probably detract people from the main story. The film may not have been DC Universe's highest grosser like past films such as Superman Doomsday and Batman Under the Red Hood, but Flashpoint Paradox would be the start of a new direction for DC animation. While 2013 was definitely a turbulent year, the end would show great promise. The fall would usher in a deluxe edition of Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, as two separate films would officially be combined into one 152-minute film. The deluxe edition also included new special features not in the two separate installments, including a documentary on Frank Miller. Some called it a cash grab, while others were waiting for a possible single film of the complete story. On the exact same day of the deluxe edition's release, the fans would even get treated to a limited screening of the complete film. However, this was not the celebration of Batman that had the fans talking. Rather, it was Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox. It had been almost 6 months since the film was released, but it was the treat that the viewers got at the end credits that had them talking. We now lived in a world where moviegoers stayed to the very end of a theatrical release for the now infamous post-credits scene. This was a movie-going staple now thanks to Kevin Feige and the MCU. James Tucker had already provided the first DC Universe post-credits scene in Superman Unbound. The scene at the end of Flashpoint Paradox, however, told a very different story. Those who said the film stayed true to the source material weren't kidding, as the post-credit scene was about to pave the way for a new age in DC animation. The question was, were we as fans going to be prepared?